What's going on, everybody? BobbyFi with my man Eric Sheets-Haber. We are going to be talking a little NBA today, coming off a pretty decent night. I actually finished fourth in the Monster on FanDuel, not for a huge amount because it wasn't a huge tournament, but had a chance there, and feels good to be winning. I love NBA playoff basketball, and it was my second slate only for the playoffs. I skipped the weekend, so it's going to be fun to get into this. Sheets, have you been playing the NBA so far, and are you ready to
go? A lineup there, one or two over the last couple of days, nothing really. Yeah, not since I had a good one before we left with the Robert Williams day. I guess he wasn't quite as good yesterday. Yeah, ready to do it while we still have slates, you know?
Yep, absolutely. All right, well, let's get into it. Let's pull up your screen and go game by game. These are good slates there's a lot you can get leverage, like the ownership on certain guys and certain builds and leaving money on the table. There's a lot of creativity you can do when it comes to betting on the NBA playoffs. They've done a better job pricing this year where we don't get the same values that we've had in the past. Anyway, with all that said, it's always hard because every star looks great and they're all a little bit underpriced in general. But with all that, Washington, Philly, this is a game where I'm going to suggest that if you're going to play one of them, you play Bradley Beal and not Westbrook. Look, Beal, for those of you who remember, the night I should have won the $250,000. He early in the season, he put up like 62 real life points, and I think it was like 80 fantasy points against these guys. Westbrook in general, look, he's going to have big games in this series, and maybe this will be one of them. He's going to play 1 million minutes. He's going to do a ton of things. But every box that you would want to check for a Westbrook game, these games don't check. So we're really just talking about playing Westbrook because he's at 11-4, and that's probably too cheap for him in a game where he's going to play 40 minutes. That's a good play, but I'm going to lean Beal a little bit. I think he has a little bit more. With 8,800, obviously makes a big difference. But we saw it in the last game. He put up 55 in this matchup. For whatever reason, for a team that guards perimeter really well, and he was it wasn't like he was like a crazy outlier. He was 1 for 6 from 3 in that game. You know what I mean? He did have 10 rebounds, but like Bradley Beal at 8,800 he's averaging against this team. I got slanted because that one game, like 60 fantasy points per game. Let's play Bradley Beal. That's where I'm at right now. And I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna have any Westbrook tonight, but I'm just gonna say as of right now, I'm looking at it as a Beal and a Hachimura, with some, I really am curious what's going to happen with this is the thing about Washington. You don't know what's going to happen with the centers. It usually has to do with how they did in the last one. The one guy we know is going to get minutes is pretty much the same minutes as usually Daniel Gafford. The problem is, as a Washington fan and a Westbrook fan, I sort of hope they would give those minutes to Robin Lopez because I actually think it makes the game matchup a little bit better for them. But Gafford, as it stands, is the better play between the two of them. Lopez is the long shot guy I would talk about using if Embiid is going nuts. They might go to him a little bit sooner. So Gafford, and that's pretty much my three: Beal, Hachimura, and Gafford.
Yeah. So the way I I think playoff basketball is kind of interesting because, on the one hand, you want to play, these big studs that are going to play 40 minutes, right, or as many minutes as they want. Yet on the other hand, because every team is playing their studs as many minutes as possible, you don't get those 3K values. You know what I mean? To make it possible to play those studs that you're going to be playing 40 minutes. So yeah, it'd be nice, honestly, for me to be able to play Westbrook and Embiid. I would really appreciate that. But just the fact that there's just nothing. I don't really want to play 47.50 a person, for the rest of my lineup. I just want to go a little more middling up. You'd have to pick between these. So I'm kind of in agreement in this respect. I honestly would rather play Westbrook than Beal, but I also kind of would rather play Embiid. So
no, I'm saying I'd play Beal than Westbrook.
What's that?
I have Beal over Westbrook.
No, I know that. Yeah, so what I'm saying is that I would actually rather play Westbrook than Beal. So I'm the opposite for you. But the problem is with that is that I kind of also want to play Embiid. So if I play Embiid, probably not going to be able to play Westbrook. And have a lineup that I'm kind of comfortable with. So I'm probably not going to do either. That's probably where I'm going to come out on the Washington side. Is probably not going to end up doing either. I'm kind of more into the Philly guys.
Yep.
Tobias, Simmons, Embiid, even, Danny Green at 4K is fine. So I'm actually don't mind playing a couple of those guys together. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm probably off of Washington and, probably just going to be overweight on the Philly guys.
Yeah, I agree. I have Simmons number 1, Embiid number 2, Harris number 3, and I think that Harris, you could argue he's number 2, and I think you could argue Embiid is number 1. Embiid should smash this team in general, and he did in the season. He didn't really in the first game of the season.
He didn't do anything the whole first half.
They played their bigs and they doubled. Now that you can get away, that's the right way to do it. They really slowed him down. I mean, and I think that there's some merit to that. What's going to happen then, though, is first of all, in a transition game, I'm always going to be looking at Ben Simmons anyway. It's not just because he put up 51 last time. It's a great matchup for him in general. Even if he doesn't get there, he should put up like 35 or 40. It's not going to kill you. You know what I mean? And I feel like that about Harris a little bit too, but less so than I do about Simmons, who's going to have the ball in his hands, going to have more opportunities for rebounds, steals, blocks, putbacks, things like that. And I think that this is just a really, really good spot for him. So I also think Danny Green, I agree, is completely in play. One thing to be, and Curry could shoot all he wants against this team.
Yeah.
The kind of game he could have a game, but maybe super long shot play is George Hill.
Okay.
He's the minutes have trended. He got his minutes the last one, 18 minutes or whatever. If he play, if there's a path where he's playing well on the court and they leave him out there with Simmons or something, he can really shoot it. So I could see them wanting him out there, but so can Curry. Danny Green can't as well, but can to some extent. But I could see him taking some minutes from Danny Green and potentially being the real cool pivot at 3,400 that no one has that puts up 25. Long shot, but just wanted to throw that one out there.
I'm going to tell you something. I was away, so I was basically following the game somewhat. I got to tell you, for a team that pride themselves in their defense this season, that Knicks possession where they just let Trey walk down the lane was a freaking embarrassment. So that was,
They messed up. You know what they was supposed to do? The defender, they said it after. The defender was supposed to rotate him, let him go over the screen, rotate, and then play like on top of him while the other guy came up, but nobody came up and he didn't rotate hard enough around the screen. It just didn't make any sense. It was just a collapse. But go ahead, Sheets.
So I like the same guys that, you know what? I actually like the same guys that that I liked the last time these guys played. And that starting with Derrick Rose, probably my favorite play from the game. And then, it's kind of hard to deny it, man. So Trey at 8,500 is probably not bad. I don't know if I can make it work, but I like Derrick Rose. I like Trey. Don't think I'm going to be able to. Am I going to be able to afford Randall? Is Randall a priority that I have to make myself be able to afford? These are the questions that I'm asking myself.
Randall just dismantled this team during the regular season, and I think we saw an outlier of a bad game, but it's not like they are better. And Capella didn't play every game this year. You know what I mean? There's some things that happened there that were kind of fluky, but mostly he did dominate this team a number of times. And I think that I think he's a terrific play, but it's just a matter of how do we prioritize these guys. And I think we have to do that sort of after we look at everybody, because he is definitely in play for me, as is Trey. And they're a cheaper version of what you can get when maybe you play Bradley Beal and Ben Simmons and Trey and Rose and Randall or something to get, you're just, that more of a balancing, not quite paying all the way up to the 10 guys. I just think that's kind of interesting. So that's, I think you want to focus on these two games. We'll get into why and after the next game.
Would you go back to Alec Burks again?
I think it's kind of reachy. Like, I mean, first of all, he's not going to shoot and score like that. I just think that we're kind of reaching a little bit. He kept him in it. I think all the scoring and production is going to shift towards Randall. We didn't mention Nerlens Noel.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in Nerlens Noel, assuming that he plays, of course. And if he doesn't, you're going to have to play Taj Gibson. And I'm still interested in Taj Gibson a little bit too at 33. I mean, you have to try and find value everywhere on these slates. So both Gibson and Noel or Gibson stand out as potential value.
I think you're also, if Noel doesn't play, you're going to probably have to play Randall.
It's interesting.
Just more rebounds for him too.
Yeah, I think you should play Randall and Taj in that situation because Taj is gonna with Tibbs' team, he's gonna play Taj. He's gonna play Taj for plenty of minutes. I think, assuming that Noel is out. Yeah, and then on the Atlanta side, it's hard to find things to like love outside of Trey. The only thing I'd point out is like, okay, I understand this is not the right matchup for centers. I understand that he didn't have a game the other night, but Clint Capella is going to be pretty unowned at 7,800, and we've seen him just absolutely destroy in games where didn't even make sense, whether it was up pace, slow down, whatever. And he's just a guy you can consider. And I think with all these other prices, he's going to be forgotten about. I don't think I'm going to touch anything else from their side unless we heard out of the blue like, oh, DeAndre Hunter can play 32 minutes tonight. Then I would just go, okay, well, DeAndre Hunter's a lock. But unless that happens, I think those are my only interests on the Atlanta side.
You like just going back for a second, you like Rui at all?
Yeah, I mentioned I do like Rui.
Okay.
It's not like a play I'm in love with, not a great matchup or anything, but he's going to play a bunch of minutes. He's 4,700, and he's always got upside for that, especially if they try to take Westbrook out of the game. I think that's what Philly does. That's what people don't realize. Like when they play, Philly wins all these games. They play Washington, and even when Beal went off for 60 whatever points, they try to stop Westbrook first, because the truth is that's when Washington really gets going, is when Westbrook goes nuts. When Beal scores over 40 or 50, they mostly lose. So they're gonna. I think they're gonna be okay with eating Beal's points and overplaying Westbrook. And anyway. All right, should we get to Memphis?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that that Donovan Mitchell got scratched from that.
That was the weirdest thing, and is going to be a huge issue, in my opinion, if things don't go well for Utah. Because I think you're going to see a similar thing happen with Kawhi. Everybody who's this high level and has their own trainers saying they can do this and that, if somehow they were to lose this series in 7 games or something, and that first game had something to do with it, I'm not saying they're going to, but if they were, I mean, that's tough to justify to a guy like Mitchell, who's just really competitive. So anyway,
yeah, I did really well. I played the slate. I tell you again, I told you I had the. Is that the Robert Williams? No, Robert Williams said I did okay, but in the I did really well. But in the I had, what's his name? I had the Dylan Brooks, by the way.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I liked him in this spot in this last game, and he went freaking crazy. So I don't know if he's gonna.
He might be the best player so far out of the Blues. Because remember he locked up. I mean, he didn't lock up Steph, but he did an incredible job on Steph in the play-in game. I feel like he's coming into his own here. So I think that we're catching him at the right time.
Yeah. So he's still, and he's one of those things. It's one of those things I talked about where he's maybe not going to be projected to be like the best play ever, because it's just the last couple of games he's done better. So their median will just carry him back earlier in the season and stuff. But that seemed to be a good recipe to win at Utah the first game. Let Dylan Brooks do his thing. So it sounds good to me. I will say that just from the numbers, I still think the best play on the board is Rudy Gobert. You have issues because you'd like to play Embiid, but you could certainly play them both. But then you kind of want to play. Well, you don't have to play Nerlens Noel, obviously. But I like him. Royce O'Neal's always that guy, man. He's going to play 35 minutes, and you'll be on your hands and knees begging for the 20 fantasy points. Maybe on a 3-game slate, I won't mind throwing him in there. And on Memphis, aside from Dylan Brooks, Joe Val 8K, but again, there's a lot of good center options. And I don't know if I need to be picking on Rudy Gobert defense. So I'm kind of into kind of boring Rudy Gobert with I guess Conley's okay. And then we have to see if Mitchell's playing. I mean, I guess Mitchell's playing. I kind of don't want to play him.
I think
I just kind of don't want to, even though maybe it'll be low owned and break the slate somehow. I just kind of don't feel like it. Kyle Anderson did okay, but for me, I guess Dylan Brooks. Let's ride the hot hand is my favorite Memphis guy, Dylan Brooks.
Yeah, I'm okay with Brooks. I'm worried. This game has the recipe for to be a Utah blowout a little bit, and
Interesting.
you have to look for some of this stuff in the postseason and these short slates because I liked Memphis in game one. Actually, I didn't know that they would win, but I thought it was going to be a good game.
Oh wow.
Donovan Mitchell, I think, is the best tournament play on the slate.
Wow.
No, I mean just because there's no reason like he's going to put, especially with all the extra stuff going on and how he wasn't there and all this and feeling like he needs to carry the team. Everything just sort of leads to like, yeah, we should probably be playing Donovan Mitchell. He's going to be unowned again. There's other good plays, but I really like him. The reason I don't like him as much that I'm sort of electing to pull a little bit more of a fade on this whole situation. I will have some Royce O'Neal because he's so cheap. You can play O'Neal with Mitchell in those lineups. That means the game probably stays a little closer with Brooks if I'm going to use anybody from Memphis. And I'm not really going to get too involved other than those guys. I'm much more interested in the first two games than this one.
Okay.
There's that weird outside. If it is close, you're going to see Ja, Rudy Gobert, and Donovan Mitchell all go completely nuts if it's really close, in my opinion. Because if it plays close this time, I think you're going to need more from Ja. Oddly, it's sort of like Westbrook with the Philly thing. It's a terrible matchup for his game style, but at the same time, he's blown up against Utah a number of times this season. The weird part is the part that's a little concerning is that he was 11 for 21 in the last game and he put up 35 fantasy points. We need a lot more than that, obviously, for 8,100. But mostly, I think I'm going to focus on the first two games.
Yeah, I'm kind of into that actually.
Yeah, not as much fun.
Anything different on FanDuel that you noticed?
Let's see. There's definitely some drastic pricing differences. I just don't have. Let me grab it up real quick.
Let me grab mine.
Yeah, if we go to FanDuel, the ones I had. Hold on one second. Oops.
Derek, I have Derek. Well, Derek Rose is about the same, I guess.
Yep.
I don't see anything that egregious actually.
Yeah, it's not as drastic as it's been in the past. That's for sure. Yeah. So anyway, I think that why is it not giving me the updated projections? Come on, guy. All right, but yeah,
just for fun.
You want to do positions real quick?
No, I'm gonna build a FanDuel lineup with my top positions as it stands right now. Let's just see what it comes up with. Let's see what it does. So I'm just listing them, whatever. So I'm gonna start with Danny Green, actually. So let's start there. Then I'm gonna go to Joel Embiid. Let's put him in.
Okay.
Then I'm going to go to Derek Rose. I just want to see how many points gets left over here. And then I'm going to go to Ben Simmons. And then at shooting guard, we're going to go to who you just mentioned. We're going to go to Donovan Mitchell. Let's just see what that leaves us. That leaves us $59.50 per person. So who do we like at power forward? So I would say either Royce O'Neal or Tobias Harris is probably the best play, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, here we go. Yeah, Tobias Harris would be the best play.
You mentioned, you probably don't want to play.
Royce O'Neal's fine. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, you don't want to play both these guys together, but Seth Curry is pretty good.
Yeah,
you could build stuff.
Yeah, there's plenty of ways to go with it. On FanDuel, it's a little bit easier too because it's just padded pricing. I mean, but yeah, I think that Curry, Mitchell's going to be really popular. He'll be popular over here. He won't be popular on DraftKings. Yeah, Bertans is a pivot off of Royce O'Neal at 3,800. Julius Randall is going to be lower owned than I think he should be. I think he's got a chance to be the highest scoring player on the slate, even though I'm not saying it's most likely. I just think he does have a chance to be, other than Westbrook. Yeah, I think you can pretty much do most of what you want to do. I'm loading our other video currently, so if I seem a little distracted, that's why.
What'd you say?
I'm loading our baseball video right now, so if I seem distracted, that's why.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, we're almost. Let's see.
Yeah, but these guys, some of these guys are probably going to do something.
Yeah, and we'll have more information later, and I'll have more digging in later. But I think mostly, I mean, I'm still sticking with basically the same core guys I mentioned over on DraftKings on FanDuel.
You know what you could do if you told me that Beal's going to be that Bogdanovich is that what you call it, Donovan Mitchell's going to be popular. You play Bradley Beal.
It's true.
Oh, here it says I can't select more than four.
He's actually going to be popular. He'll have ownership too. It's going to be hard to get different on FanDuel as always, so we're going to have to try and find something better than what I have right now because I don't have that yet. I just don't have anything that I've figured out that I like enough. I built some lineups. I tried around, I messed around with it. I just didn't find anything that made sense to me yet.
Okay.
All right. So with that, Sheets, anything else before we get out of here? I'm just going to remind everybody this. Oh, sorry. I'm going to say one more thing. I do think that you can play like guys like Simmons and Embiid together. Don't look at it as like, remember, this is not normal slates. You can play those guys together on these kind of things. And even Westbrook and Beal if you want to do a game stack.
I'll ask you this question. Who do you think is the most fadeable between Harris, Simmons, and Embiid?
The gulp and makes me nervous, Embiid.
Okay.
Actually, no, sorry. Harris would be the most. Really depends on. Yeah, I think that's a good question. I like all three of them very much, and I obviously have to deal with that issue. But I think that there's enough ways Harris doesn't shoot the ball well or something like that. Embiid maybe gets. I have a feeling Embiid goes nuts, but he's going to be so popular. I'm looking for reasons to get off of him. So they'll all be popular. Harris makes plenty of sense, but if you wanted to fade one of them, I guess it'd probably be him.
How's Jaren Jackson been doing?
Not doing too much from a fantasy perspective. They look better with him out there as a team, but I don't think that it's doing much from a fantasy perspective.
All right, we'll fire up some golf, I guess.
Let's do it. And yeah, we'll be back with you guys shortly. Good luck to everyone, and we'll see you at the top of leaderboards tonight.